Hey, everybody, super welcome. Wow, telling you we're fired up today. Really like it. I like what we're doing. I like it, Benny. I like it, Olivia. I like it.
We like it. We like
We
it.
like it. Yeah, we liking it. Boy, you know, this is in the spirit of one of our listeners. I get great things. I get letters from Susie and emails from Jackie and just you know, Janine, people, right, all over, Bill, and one of these folks, which he or she shall not, who will not be named, said to me, "Hey Pat, you need to do more talking about like what's going on. You need to really talk about what's going on and what the possibilities are to do something different." So 3 things are going to come as a result of that. Today is one of them. Susan Dolce talked about conscious parenting and a bunch of other things in the last hour. Today, Sabrina Wright is going to talk about what we are not talking about: anger, fear, worry, dealing with negative emotions. I'm going to say it again. No, we're not talking about this. You know, look, I'm a member of the APA, that's the Psychology Association. And yes, I do get research from time to time on it. But where are we really talking about this? Where are we talking about this other than somebody's Twitter feed? But we're taking it on today. Anger, fear, worry, negative emotions. Oh my. Anger, fear, worry, negative emotions. Oh my. Benny, do you have that song? Let me tell you a little bit about let me tell you, I'm sorry, Sabrina. You got me on a day. Yep. Sabrina Wright, everybody. You're going to hear about her show. You're going to hear about what she does. You're also going to hear about what she's learned about health or healing, because this is really how she's dedicated her life. You know, holistic approach, you know, we use that term, but there really is a full meaning of what that is. If you know who Sabrina is, she's got more initials at the end of her name than most people, because she has worked really hard to help people holistically heal. She's a wellness advocate. She's a consultant, radio host. She's, just all of it. Why? And you're going to hear why. Because you have to be all of that to take on a topic: anger, fear, worry, negative emotions. Oh my. You have to have something in your realm of who you are to be able to talk about it and say to people, we get it. We get what's going on. We don't get exactly because you're just you, we're just we. We get it. Sabrina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Pat. You're right. This is a difficult topic, and one that is not being approached currently. In many cases, at the strangest places, 4th of July barbecue, an outing with girlfriends, this creeps into our conversations, and we're timid about talking about it, and we're shy, almost ashamed to say that we are angry with what's going on, and we're fearful about what the future holds and what's it going to look like for my children or my grandchildren. Throughout much of this year, we've been in a challenging place at best. At best, a challenging place, a challenge to what we believe, a challenge to what we know, and a challenge to the way that we live our lives. And so what I find is that to get to the root cause, if you will, of these negative emotions, we really have to dial back to ourselves and take a look at what's going on with us. What do we believe? What has been challenged? What is real? And our emotions are real, but they're not necessarily based in fact all the time, right? It's a response. So, gosh.
But let's just stay with that for a minute, because I'm going to throw something at you now.
Okay.
It's not going to be a tomato though. But I'm going to hit you up with something here.
Okay.
All the years that you and I have studied, all the years I have studied psychology, it's nauseating for me to think about how many years that is. My gosh, you'd think I would have learned something. All the studying, all the books, all the research. And a friend of mine said to me yesterday, but you did discover something, Pat. Why aren't you writing about it? Why aren't you talking about it?
Ooh.
Why? And okay, wait a minute. This was my expression, right?
Right? Right between the eyes.
And
right?
she says, but she says, you're like a deer in a headline. I said, I don't know exactly what you're talking about. I didn't. And she said, Pat, come on. Based on your research in your doctoral program and in your master in the master's, both master's programs, based on what I read about your research, you have the answer to this. And I just looked at her, and I got to say, Sabrina, I looked at her and I said, help me. I'm not seeing it. Help me. Now, why would I be so dense? Here's why. Here's why. You have the answer. Here's why. Anger, fear, worry, and negative emotions. Okay, because one of the things, right, that happens with this, Sabrina, aren't these the things that get us stuck?
Absolutely.
Stuck mentally. Tell us about that, because you see that expression for me, that like,
right? You don't know how to handle that. How do I translate it? What does it
I
look
didn't get it.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens is when we are stuck emotionally, it's almost as if there's this hood that's been put over our eyes, and we have limited visual acuity, and our lens is so dirty, if you will. It's been developed and it's been covered up over things that have happened to us, the way that we've been talked to, the limitations that people have put on us, unbeknownst to us, right? So everything just starts to cover, and we don't see ourselves as we truly are, with our gifts, with the knowledge base that we have, with the talents, and with our life experiences to be able to share that with other people. And then it's like, well, what could I possibly have to offer? Right? Many people, I've gone through that a lot. I talk to a lot of people, and that's their experience as well. I had a similar situation to you a few days ago, and a young woman who's new to my life and is really an inspiration and just a jewel just bluntly told me, just own it. And I'm like, I'm like you. I was like, own it. What am I supposed to own?
Oh my gosh, I know, right? It's like,
but it
but
made
did you actually ask? Did you say,
I didn't say anything.
I had to ask. I
I
was like,
just laughed, but it
what?
sent me into this little cocoon, if you will, and I'm processing all of this within my brain. Own it. I'm supposed to own it. So I'm strange. I get real kind of like a diagram, and it's like, this is it. Okay, what do I own? And I do a lot of drawing, and I have a lot of circles, and it's just the way that it helps me to see and put everything in my brain on a piece of paper so that I can see it a little more clearly. And it's like, okay, I'm doing this. So, yes, I need to show up. I need to choose how to use this. And what she was talking about was a Facebook Live that we do every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock. And it's the most delightful experience because it's similar to this, talking to you and sharing with your audience, having conversation and discussing certain topics, right, that don't get discussed really.
Right.
But it's in an environment that's safe. It's an environment that is collaborative. It's in an environment that really is thought provoking, and it leaves you with something to walk away with, to process, to change, and if nothing else, to help cleanse that lens so that you're going to actually see a little bit better how you can make better choices, how you can show up in the world, and how your negative emotions don't need to hold you captive.
Right. I mean, this is really part of what anger, fear, worry, negative emotions block us from. And
Mhm.
this is part of what I want to talk to you about when we come back. Because, first of all, a lot of times we can point to our upbringing and, you know, go through our families and our family messages. Just suck it up, Pat. Come on. Just suck it up, move on. Just suck it up, move on.
Be a
Yeah,
big.
we don't have time for you to feel. Then
Mhm.
we go into our workplace. And I'm telling you, this was my workplace, right? I did work for the phone company. And even in the phone company, because I wasn't a researcher, I wasn't one of the, Arno Penzias types, right? If you're an administrative or managerial type, it's the same message. Suck it up, leave. I actually had a boss that had a bucket outside this room we all worked in, right? I worked in a room with 50 other people, and he had a bucket outside the room. And when we came in, and it said on the bucket, leave your personal ... bleep home or dump it in here. Now, this is multi-generational.
Oh yeah.
And yet, I want to talk to you about this when we come back. The latest study
Hmm.
on the Generation Zers, and we'll talk about who they are. And when asked, what are your top 3 things that you want in a workplace? Everybody thought more time off, but no,
No.
that research was empathy and compassion. When we come back, we got to figure out how to give ourselves permission to feel what we feel, or as one of this famous authors say, feel the feelings and do it anyway. We'll be right back. Hey everybody. Hey everybody, welcome back. Anger, fear, worry, and dealing with negative emotion. I like this. Anger, fear, worry. Oh my. Anger, fear, worry. Oh my.
Oh my. Exactly.
Anger, fear, worry. Oh my. Anger. Is that okay? I won't get into it, but I was getting ready to wrap that. I won't do it, Benny. Anger, fear, worry, and dealing with negative emotions with Sabrina Wright right now. And it is an oh my. It's an oh my. It really is an oh my, because first you have to figure out that anger, fear, and worry equals negative emotions equals running your life. Running your life. Sabrina, before we keep hopping out here, we're going to talk about what it means to give ourselves permission to feel what we feel, which is actually one of the most important things to do. And number 2, one of the most misunderstood. How do people find out more about you? Tell folks what you got going on.
Wow. You can find me on the internet. My website is www.sabrinaiswright.com. You can find me on Facebook, and yeah, those are probably the 2 best places to find me.
I can find you. I know how to find you. Look, I want to get to this thing here that you talk about. This idea of giving ourselves permission to feel what we feel. Now, I want to just give you an extreme of this, because I have seen the good, the bad, the ugly of this.
Mhm.
When this was first introduced, and what I mean by introduced, when the idea made mainstream, right? That's what I mean. When the
Mhm.
idea went from, oh, there's a book on feel the fear and do it every way, anyway, when it went from that, and then it went to feel your emotions. I watched people feel emotions and then follow up with behavior that just was ugly. And I think we have to talk about what this means from your perspective on giving ourselves permission to feel what we feel.
It's a hard place to come to. And
Well,
many
it's a hard, I was just going to sing for you there, but it is.
it's a hard place for us to come to as individuals because of where we've come from. We've come from a past and maybe a family of origin, which is not recognizing what you feel, not understanding or leaning in to try and understand what you're feeling. And then how do you identify? Because you're not allowed to feel. And people become numb. And they're, again, it's kind of like that lens. They're walking through this haze or a fog, and they don't quite get a sense of what they're experiencing physically, biologically, chemically, emotionally, mentally. And so it just seems to be this mess, right?
Yeah.
Um, so giving yourself permission to feel is a way to connect yourself to all of those different factors, the emotional, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and giving yourself permission to take a moment and take inventory. What's going on here? Whoa, wait a minute. Why am I responding this way? Hey, I can't believe I just said that. It just blurted right out of my mouth. What was that all about? Um, Tears are another way of expressing emotion that you're unable to hear vocalize. Um, I come from a situation and a family where I was taught and told I can do anything that I put my mind to. I have the skills, the talents, go do it. And then in the next breath, even though you're the oldest, your brother gets this, 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 and this. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Okay, so here you're telling me go after it, go for it, but then you're telling me that I am limited to what I can go for and receive and have because of gender. Okay, well, okay, I'm a problem solver. So in my brain, I'm trying to figure out how to get around that problem, right? While
Right.
not vocalizing the big question mark over my head. And this was before Scooby Doo. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
what?
know, right?
But it's like, what? Okay, so how, if I'm capable of doing this, this, and this, how do I get here? And so my life has taken me on some amazing journeys through a lot of challenges, through a lot of loss, through a lot of confusing moments. And what I find incredible about humans and people is that they are stronger than they know and realize.
Right.
And
Right.
because of their life experiences, good, bad, and different, horrifying, elating, I mean, the gambit of adjectives, right? They are at a place now in their life where they are this amazing person. And what happens is all of those experiences have a way of changing the way that we think about ourselves and the way that we respond. So, giving ourselves permission especially now, to
Yeah.
identify what our feelings are is really important. So it's an inventory. It's a personal
It's
inventory.
an inventory. And I like that we're talking about it as an inventory because, I was just sharing that some of those some of those early years, some of those things were popping up for me. I shared a story about the first time I had to change my brother's diaper on the last hour, and I hadn't remembered that. I hadn't remembered it, but I had a little flashback about it. But what you're really talking about here is, you know, every year I do a fears inventory.
Ah,
I go through and I do a fears inventory. Been doing it for about 30 years now.
wow, that's
I go
powerful.
through, it is powerful. And I mean, I don't hold back. I go through and I just nail it down. Just go through it. Um and I think what happened to me Sunday is I had a moment where I had to pull my notepad out and do a quick fears inventory about things.
Oh,
And I was surprised myself um, about what I was afraid of.
uh-huh.
It wasn't the thing I thought that I would be afraid of. It wasn't like, uh, it wasn't like I'm afraid money will run out or I'm afraid I'm going to get sick. It was really deep, and it had to do with my best friend.
Oh,
And I had the moment where my best friend and I have this idea that at some point, like real soon, right? Both of us live alone. At some point, why don't we just kind of get together and just kind of, like hang out and do the rest of it? And I had this moment where I stopped on Sunday and
mhm.
I got hit with a dose of that's never going to happen. Now, why am I sharing this?
Yeah.
Because, see, I think this is the depth by which what we're experiencing here in the United States right now,
Mhm.
this is the depth of what's going on inside of us. And it stunned me. And that's why I quickly did a fear inventory to really get at it, to really figure out, well, if I lost everything,
Mhm.
let's just say, if I lost everything in my possession, I always counted on having my best friend. If I lose my best friend, none of this matters. And I think that is the reality and the emotional grit that people are experiencing today and do not know how to articulate. So even if we give ourselves permission to feel, what do we do with it? That's what we're going to talk about when we come back. What happens when we're able to face this, Sabrina? What happens when we face it? What can we do with it? When we come back, we'll be talking about possibilities, outcomes, situations, thoughts. You now have a new level of awareness about what's important.
Mhm.
Now what? Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Look, 1-800-930-2819 if you'd like to weigh in. 1-800-930-2819. Mr. Benny's there. If you just get your name and come on in, join in on the chat. Sabrina Wright joining me here today. Sabrina, we're going to find out what your website is. Before we talk about, what is the depth of some of our emotions? What do they give birth to? What are the new possibilities and outcomes? How do people find out more about you and the work you're doing around this with others?
You can find me on Facebook, Sabrina A. Wright. And you can also find me on my website, sabrinaiswright.com. You're right, Dr. Pat. It is possible. This is a hotbed of emotions and unrest and challenges and difficulties and confusion. Confusion above all else. But there are new possibilities and outcomes for our situations and our thoughts. And what I'm hearing from others and what I'm finding in my conversations is that it really is about working through this together and being courageous enough to lean in and listen to what others are experiencing, taking ourselves out of it, right? Not reacting based upon what we feel and what we have going on, but really trying to get a connection to the other person, asking thought provoking questions to help them unpack their emotions. We're in a time where, and I think you mentioned this before, that we're experiencing the highest rates of anxiety and depression. A lot of it, I believe, has to do with the unidentifiable nature of what we're experiencing emotionally. If we can't put a word to it, how are we going to change that?
Yeah.
Many
No.
times it's simply a matter of drawing back, taking inventory of what you've got going on, not only to figure out what you're feeling, but how are you taking care of yourself? What empathetic tools, how compassionate are you to yourself? At the very beginning, we talked about way back a few visits ago about self-care and how important that is. Well, what happens is that if we don't have that self-care routine established, then we are less equipped to be able to handle what now is going on in anxiety and depression and emotions that we may not be able to identify. So part again, I am just amazed at human beings and the resilience that they have. And when they resolve something or resolve to do something, change happens. To be able to get through this place of dealing with emotions, it may seem like it's a solitary job to do,
Yep.
but the ease comes when you do it in community and when you do it with others.
Yep.
So your support group becomes extremely powerful and impactful. Those people who love you in spite of your behavior, your responses, your emotions, the good, the bad, the indifferent, right?
Yep.
That support group is vital. Being able to make sure that you're getting good sleep, that requires a sleep routine and a purpose to prepare yourself for the night because your body regenerates. It's almost as if you get a reboot, right? So the next morning, when those peepers open, you've got a choice. And the choice is a little easier to make today because of the rest that you received. Those feet hit the floor and you're going. Also, what's important is to make sure that you're nourishing your body properly.
Oh, yeah.
Eating plant-based, making sure that your supplements are clean and plant-based as well, because I don't know about you, but I can't eat enough in a day to be able to fuel my body, but also to give my body the nutrients so that all of my systems work well. So speaking of that, in our brain, which our mental thoughts have a tendency to really set off our emotions, in our brain, we have three common transmitters, dopamine, serotonin, and one that I have a terrible time trying to pronounce, but no per, no per, pin, anyway, there's a third one. I'm going to have to practice saying it, but each of those neurotransmitters are chemicals, right? And so they're dopamine, everybody knows, is linked to pleasure and the reward learning process. And serotonin is associated with memory and learning. And if our serotonin is produced, right, then that helps ease depression. And then the third one helps moderate our mood, which helps
Right.
control the anxiety and the stress. Well, if our body's not getting the nutrients, if our body's not moving, if our body's not getting good rest, all of those factors affect our brain.
In a
So,
big way.
what's that?
In a big way. In a way that we don't realize. And what I mean by that is that it's, you know what it's like to me? It's like a story that I was once told. And it's one of my, it's an analogy I use. And then I usually get a bunch of emails because it has to do with the frog. But it is the story. It's the story of, look, if you take a frog and you throw a frog in hot water, it's going to jump out. But if you put the frog in cold water and slowly turn the heat up, that's what's happening to us. We are in cold water where the heat is getting turned up to the point that we don't realize or cannot detect that the water is getting hotter and hotter and hotter until it's so hot we're not able to function anymore. It's
Exactly.
very different than trauma. I've had some things in my life happen very traumatically, where one day it's this and next day it's this. Right now we're in the similar situation where one day we were this, the next day we're this. But how it affects all of us in the same way is not happening that way. It is a slow, slow, slow burn for most of us. Now, I really have to have the caveat that I have a couple of friends that don't even live paycheck to paycheck. They work 3 jobs. And to watch them not be able to work those 3 jobs, doing work that most of us couldn't do, it's it's gut wrenching. It's hard. I mean, I helped one of them fill out a form the other day because there's no tool to help people that are working 3 or 4 jobs to even know how to file for PPP. That's
Right.
another story. But
Mhm.
for those folks, it's immediate. It's traumatic. For a lot of folks, it's been a slower burn. It's been, I can get unemployment. But now we're at this place where it's gotten so turned up in terms of our future and what we know and don't know, that imagine now a society where we're all starting to boil. And it's hard for anybody with any kind of degree or your knowledge or my knowledge to even articulate what some people are going through.
Oh, exactly. And again, it's a matter of courageously leaning in and being available to them, and and walking beside them to help them navigate, like you did your friend, not only processes but feelings and thought patterns, and speaking truth into their life and pointing them in directions where there are going to be resolutions and resources and tools. Now is so much more important to come together as a community and to help each other.
I'll tell you what, I did a lot of tapping exercises and I had everybody tapping because I mean, I can't even believe I'm actually saying that, but we're living at a time right now where there are solutions and we have to stop the whirlwind. Let's take a short break. When we come back, what we want to tell you that this, it is possible. It is possible not only to stop the whirlwind, but do you know somebody that could use your help? Is there something you could share with someone, whether it be on Zoom or a phone call, that you could reach out to? And even listening for 15 minutes or so to what their journey is about. The idea of being witnessed in the day and age we live in, so underrated. and so needed. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. What a great show. Sabrina Wright, thank you for joining me, Sabrina. Anger, fear, and worry, and dealing with negative emotions. Sabrina, let's just recap for a minute. If we could talk about what this all comes down to mean for you.
To be able to navigate through our current environment, I think that it's really important that when we're experiencing negative emotions, that we pull back and we take an inventory of what we're feeling, where's it coming from, what are we being triggered, and then what is true. Also, to check in on what your self-care routine is so that you're able to affect your chemistry, your biology, and your physical self so that you're less likely to be in a whirlwind and better able to look at challenges that you're dealing with. And identify what's triggering you. Make sure that you're calling on your support system. And that's, again, they're a critical part to your self-care routine. And then check your heart motive about your responses. I mean, are you just responding, or are you reacting? And check your heart motive in that response or reaction. Is it true? Is it real? Is it authentically you? Or are you just reacting? And then once all of that is occurring, then look at the possibility. What if? Years and years and years ago, I was told by someone that I have such a Pollyanna outlook.
That's my nickname, Pollyanna Patty.
Is it really? Oh my gosh. And Pollyanna was always about the what ifs, right?
Right.
Always looking at the sunny side of the street. And one Christmas, I received a bunch of beautiful crystals, right? And it reminded me of when I'm in the old man's home, and that's what delighted him, was to see all the prisms. So this may just sound really silly and very simplistic, but look for possibilities. Really take a look at the what ifs. If I choose and if I decide to respond this way, what would that outcome possibly be? Instead of reacting negatively, and I were to clean my lens off and look forward, and I've been so blessed recently to have an amazing person in my life who's been such a strategist at helping me to think ahead instead of reacting with all what's going on right here, right? If I do this, what's the repercussion? Who's it going to affect? Is it going to be positive, and does it move me in the right direction? If we can just draw back and not let our emotions run us, rule us, and play havoc with us, we're in such a better place to move forward and to create better change and better responses to the challenges that are going on right now.
Yeah. And I think that the good news is, and this is really good news, that, find someone or find an online group, find your people, find your tribe. Even if you don't know who they are, you can certainly go online. You can Google positive or community or something of that, but find a way for you to literally feel like there is a possibility, like hope does exist. I mean, that's
Amen.
what you and I are talking about. And then also tell folks again what you're doing.
So, what I'm doing is I'm talking with people about where they are in life. I'm walking alongside them and helping them see that it isn't all doom and gloom, and life is giving you possibilities. So let's talk about where you would like to go and how we can get you set on that course of action. So right now, what I'm offering, and you can, if you go onto my website, Sabrina is WRIGHT.com, you're going to be able to find under services a couple of things. Give me a call. Let's have a phone conversation, and let's work the dialogue that you've got in your brain out. Let's get those emotions identified. Let's verbalize it. So then we're able to work on changing it from negative to positive. Change the way that life has been dealt and what you see is negative or lack, and look at options and opportunities. And then I also want to offer a free sample of CBD oil
Mm,
that's going to help with the anxiety and the stress that your nervous system is going through.
yeah, it's
It's also,
fantastic.
it really is. And it's also something that I personally have been using to help with sleep. And so my sleep is more restful, it's more restorative. And again, my peepers open up and I'm like, okay, let's go meet the day. But those are a couple of opportunities and options that I have for you. And I really would encourage you to go to my website. Sabrina is WRHC.com, and take advantage of both of those
Yeah,
options.
you should come back. We
Truly.
should talk about the CBD oil, because for me, it is it was and still is a game changer for me across the board.
Mhm.
And I'm not an expert in it, so that's why I don't even bring it up on the shows that I do. I can only talk about, what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and what I'm
Mhm.
doing it with. But would
Certainly.
you mention that offer one last time?
Absolutely. So there's an opportunity for you to receive a free 2-day sample of the CBD oil. And it's available on my website, sabrinaisright.com, under services, the services page. All you'll have to do is fill out your information and your address, and it'll be on its way to you.
Awesome. I love it.
Mhm.
Sabrina, thank you so much. I've got one last question for you.
Okay.
And then just so you know, I have set up my new robot for my ping pong table. And of course, I cannot figure out how to get it to work, but I
Mm.
did not procrastinate. I have decided to call the people that can help me so that I could do one of the things you mentioned today, and that's move my body. From you to everybody here, what's your personal message? What would you like to leave us with today?
We live in a time of opportunity. We may not see it, we may not understand it, but there are people and tools available, and I'm available to walk with you through that process. So let's have a conversation. There are great things on the other side of this challenge. With pain and suffering, on the opposite end of that is comfort. So let's get you there. My website is sabrinaiswright.com. Reach out and let's have a conversation.
I love it. Sabrina, thank you so much. You rock. I'm telling you,
Thanks,
thank
Dr.
you for all the things you're doing in the world, because I think at this stage of my life, what I realized is there is only one approach for me. I don't know how I learned it, but it has got to be the holistic approach. And it's the hardest thing in the world to do is to really stop and put ourselves first. I know how hard it is, and I know how well you help people.
Mm,
Thank you for all of that.
thank you.
All right, everybody, we've got another hour coming up on Transformation Talk Radio. We'll see you next time.